Blanck Mass continue the gnashing, grotesque, violent, but oddly anthemic approach to LOUD-BOI soundscapes on Animated Violence Mild. I remember loving the hell out of their 2017 album World Eater for literally sounding like the soundtrack to the world melting into a giant space puddle, but I also remember wishing it had a much more natural flow instead of building hype with two incredible rushes of adrenaline and then deflating it with a kebab skewer straight afterwards. I suppose this is their way of apologizing, literally hammering us again and again with dense, entrancing storms of glistening sound, often pierced through by the terrifying screeches and gnashes, like an impending threat is making itself known. What I've just said might sound like a shit pile of nonsense, but Blanck Mass's music is a bit of a kaleidoscopic sensory overload experience that is often easier witnessed than described, a little bit like a proxy page video. I look at this cover art and I see a product, an apple with a sticker on it. We know of apples as natural nourishment, a gift from the earth, but if you slap such a bright and eye-grabbing sticker onto it, we've got ourselves a little bit of a symbol of what consumerism and capitalism does to us, and it's such an integral and inherent part of the way our society is structured that if you take a big crunchy bite out of it, it's bleeding so nastily from the inside, or maybe that is just us that is bleeding. Who knows, someone gets damaged in the end. I had this semi-confirmed with the music video for Love is a Parasite, where various people in a commercial take bites out of branded Blanck Mass apples and they end up spewing blood at the mouth, seeming to be possessed by a pesky bacterial infection. I could be totally off, but I don't really listen to this very hyper-stylized album and hear a comfortable, uplifting bliss. I mean, it certainly sounds uplifting at first, but there's an aspect to it that sounds false almost. I get the same feeling from the song Fade Away by Hannah Diamond, a song that is clearly humane in its sincere feelings of heartbreak, but also inhumane in how it's designed, almost as if it's had the soul sucked out of it. All of these tracks sound like themes for superhuman invincibility, but ironically at the cost of any semblance of ethics. Everything on this album sounds clearly thought through, which is quite impressive. Even the title. It's animated, it's violent, it's not that mild actually, sorry. The synth textures and their composition, from the prickly arpeggios to that citric rush that you might get from eating a whole bag of sour candy, that taste bud sting. Everything on this album is hyper sweet. My gripe with the album as a whole is that this fountaining pleasance is just a little bit over the top. The lead melody is sickeningly sweeter than ever on Hush Money, and the way that this type of stimulation, very akin to sparkling water, manifests on No Dice, over a drum beat that very much sounds like banging on school lunch tables, sort of reveals the album to be a bit homogeneous in texture, of which the texture is already pretty gooey. I don't really like eating gooey for too long. At some points I felt my teeth were going to fall out. It's a clever way of demonstrating a point that backfires upon itself a little bit in terms of enjoyment, a bit faux epic, a bit like hyperactive Newgrounds music, if you know what I mean. Believe me though, the album is clearly pretty damn good, like a strong 6 out of 10 good, that jumps high and bumps its head on the 7 out of 10 threshold, and I think just taking after the track Rhesus Negative on their last album, stylistically, was the foolproof method of having me somewhat hooked from the get-go. Death Drop and House vs House is a hell of a 1-2 punch, followed by the same punch, and then the same punch again, but a different color. But who cares about the pain of all those punches? Eat a Blanck Mass apple, and you could ascend to new levels of immunity.